I think we are in the midst of a democratization of psychotherapy. First, psychotherapy was part of medicine. Then it became wider. It broke the professionalism and went into psychology, social work. And then I think a new shamanism has emerged, a phenomenon of contagion that goes much beyond professionalism, a phenomenon of vocation.
I think you'd have to say that here in California, where there must be thousands and thousands of people practicing psychotherapeutic disciplines outside of the recognized professions.
Yes, and I think there is a hope in that. It's at the time when psychotherapy started with psychoanalysis, psychoanalysis had a very imperialistic attitude, a monolithic, a monopoly, which discouraged self-analysis. And I think today it is more suitable to encourage the potential everybody has to work on himself and to assist the inner work of others. So I'm all for support groups and self-help procedures, only that I think there are particular tools that need to be generated and training that needs to be given, so professionals might now turn their attention to a different function in the community.
Well, one of the parallels, I suppose, that one might draw between the Eastern and Western approaches is that of the guru, or the Eastern teacher who is often very authoritarian, and the therapist who, in his own way, can also be quite authoritarian. You yourself seem to have run into some difficulties with this. How does one, especially a Westerner, deal with the authoritarian aspects of it?
It's a very interesting question. I have lived it very personally since, as I have mentioned, my first powerful influence after psychoanalysis was Fritz Perls. And I believed in the democratic all-American attitude of personal transparency. And even though Perls had a masterful use of authority, it was different from the guru's authority. It was not supported in holy books or anything beyond himself. It was only supported in his wishes and his impulse. And then after working with Oscar, I came to believe in the possibilities of being a group manipulator in Eastern ways too, and adopted that for a while. And
what do you mean by that, in Eastern ways?
For instance, people. I was very charismatic during that time. I attracted lots of people.
And if people
were willing, little by little, I started to accept the position of a taskmaster.
The mystique of the guru, perhaps.
I started using authority in a subtle way. I haven't spelled it out very carefully to myself either what it consisted in, but I only know that at some point I was feeling uncomfortable uncomfortable about being at the same level of others. It is as if I had something at stake on being one who knows more, one who is followed. That's and so it was a long process to regain my original stance, and now I would say I have come through experience to a point where I get respect, I get, I am heard in a way even more than I have in the past when I was unconsciously seducing the audience by being brilliant. But I can see in retrospect that many people today are caught up in the guru role, therapists who have found refuge in the guru role without quite being up to it. That is, there is such a thing as being addicted to applause and not knowing the difference. and which is different from the role of a true master Oriental style, who can sometimes handle that situation, who can hold court, as Muktananda, for instance, used to do, in a masterful way, without really needing it for himself. He can sort of use the human energy polarized to him and act the role of a hierophant, or like some of the great Tibetans, and use the paraphernalia like the throne, or as the Pope does.
It seems if you look into the writings of the followers of even some of the well-recognized gurus, such as Muktananda, there's a lot of gossip that comes out that they didn't fulfill the ideal role ultimately. They were, they had their foibles.
Well, I think Muktananda's case is very complex. My own interpretation of him is that he was playing the role of a saint according to Western ideals, or to cultural ideals in general. And I think he was a saint in the real sense, which has nothing to do with that. For instance, it's the popular idea that a saint has no sexual life, and that he was playing the role of a brahmachari, which I think it was part of a cultural mission she was in, to be an educator in large scale, and it was fitting that he did that role. And my own evaluation of him, he was clean, because he was not a lecher. He was he had a healthy sexual life, let's say, but he was like some of these Orientals that I have called tricksters. I think there's an old tradition that runs all the way from the days of shamanism up to contemporary teachers, particularly in the Middle East, that have this characteristic. I think because the human ego is such a trickster, it can be very useful to have a trickster to play chess against for this ego, to be tricked beyond oneself. So some people have taken up this subject in contemporary therapy, like the followers of Erickson. It's not the core of a humanistic movement, but I think there's something to be said for that.